Let's kick off this explainer with a pretty relatable question. Have you ever felt like your attempts at self-improvement are just, well, mundane chores? Like it's just this never-ending, exhausting checklist of things you're doing wrong? Well, Thomas Alethea's profound work, 12 Steps to a Good Life, completely shatters that idea. He takes our personal growth and frames it not as some tedious task, but as an epic, mythic quest. Think less, I have to do the laundry, and way more, I'm a Viking warrior setting sail into stormy, uncharted seas. Today, we're going to explore how he maps the famous 12 steps directly onto Joseph Campbell's classic hero's journey. And as you'll see, he proves that our search for a better life is actually the ultimate human adventure. To really set the stakes for this voyage, listen to this powerful quote from the psychologist Carl Jung. He said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." It's intense, right? But it perfectly captures Alethea's core message. See, the dark, uncomfortable parts of our lives, our fears, our flaws, those past mistakes that keep us up at night, they aren't just things we should sweep under the rug. They are absolutely the necessary starting point for profound personal transformation. You literally cannot reach the light without braving the dark.
And that brings us to the core problem we all face. Aletheia calls it the perennial struggle. It's that enduring inner conflict between light and shadow, desire and fear. It's basically the inescapable tension right at the core of the human experience. Think of it as the stormy, totally unmanageable seas that our inner warrior has to navigate. But here's the absolutely crucial takeaway. This struggle is a universal human condition. It is not a personal flaw. You aren't broken just because you struggle. You struggle because you are human. And that tension, that is exactly where your journey begins.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our map for the hero's journey today covers 5 distinct stages: the perennial struggle, crossing the threshold, into the abyss, death and rebirth, and finally, the triumphant return.
Stage 1. The perennial struggle, leaving the ordinary world.
So every hero's journey and every myth and legend begins exactly the same way, when the illusion of normalcy completely shatters. I mean, you can't start an epic quest if you're perfectly content sitting in your comfort zone, right? The journey absolutely demands that you step out of the familiar. And this brings us to step 1, admitting that your life has become unmanageable. In mythic terms, this is your true call to adventure. Aletheia explains that holding on to the illusion that we can control everything is just exhausting. When you finally admit you're powerless over certain aspects of your reality, you're forced to drop those broken shields of ego and false control. You're finally acknowledging the limits of your tiny, fragile bubble in this vast cosmos. And listen, this admission doesn't make you weak. No way. It makes you ready for the adventure.
Stage 2. Crossing the threshold. Venturing into the unknown.
To cross this threshold, we look at steps 2 and 3. The hero has to leave the safety of the shore, raise their sails, and totally abandon the old way of doing things, which is the illusion of control. That's the ego-driven striving, resisting reality, relying entirely on your own willpower. It's literally like trying to punch the ocean waves to stop the tide. It's pointless. Instead, we have to embrace surrender to a higher power. Now let's be clear, this isn't about just being passive and giving up. It's about embracing reality, practicing deep trust, putting faith into motion, and relying on a greater wisdom, however you happen to define that. It's a massive shift from fighting the waves to actually learning how to align with them and sail. Let's take a quick step back and look at the whole picture. Aletheia maps Joseph Campbell's classic hero's journey stages directly onto the 12 steps. So, departure covers steps 1 to 3. That's leaving the ordinary world and trusting the process. Then, initiation is steps 4 through 9. This is the really heavy internal lifting where we face our major trials. And finally, the return covers steps 10 to 12, which is bringing our newly found wisdom back to daily life. Seeing the logic and flow of this timeline shows us exactly how we travel from total chaos to genuine wisdom, without getting hopelessly lost along the way.
Stage 3. Into the abyss, confronting the inner demons.
Welcome to the belly of the beast. This is, for sure, the darkest, most terrifying part of the voyage, because you're no longer fighting external enemies, you are looking inward. This abyss corresponds to steps 4 and 5, making a searching and fearless moral inventory, and then admitting the exact nature of your wrongs to yourself, to another human being, and to a higher power. Aletheia describes this fearless inventory as a literal descent into the underworld. Just like a warrior diving into the dark, you are cataloging your fears, your resentments, and all those old coping mechanisms that just do not serve you anymore. And remember, you aren't doing this to punish yourself. You are doing it to rescue your lost soul and reclaim your authentic self from the shadows.
Which brings us right to step 6. Let's just pause for a second. Ask yourself this direct question. Are you entirely ready to change? Because you've seen your demons now, you've mapped your flaws, but are you actually willing to let them go? Alethea notes that our flaws usually started out as protective armor. So taking them off, it feels incredibly vulnerable. But this willingness, this absolute readiness, is the crucial bridge connecting your old, flawed life to a miraculous new one.
Stage 4. Death and rebirth, transformation and atonement.
So, crossing that bridge brings us to the phase where the old ego, with all its rigid defenses and stubborn pride, has to be sacrificed. It's only by letting that old version of yourself die that a wiser, stronger, and way more resilient self can emerge from the depths. And look at how these epic mythic stages translate into everyday action. The mythic stage of transformation perfectly aligns with step 7, humbly asking for your shortcomings to be removed. Then we hit atonement. In myth, this is where the hero makes peace with the gods or maybe their father. But in the 12 steps, this is steps 8 and 9, making a list of all persons you've harmed and making direct amends to those people wherever possible. We are taking epic, sweeping myth and applying it as highly practical, boots-on-the-ground work. You are literally out there repairing the damage of your past.
And let's be absolutely clear about why we have to do this. The source material emphatically reminds us of one huge truth. Reality is the sole arbiter of what works. Meaning, this journey isn't just some mystical theory, and it definitely isn't a collection of feel-good magical platitudes. It requires facing the real world with absolute unflinching honesty. You can't just meditate your way out of the harm you've caused other people. You have to take actual, real-world action to make things right. Reality is the ultimate test of your transformation.
Stage 5. The triumphant return, bringing wisdom home.
So, our hero has braved the storm. They've descended into the underworld, faced the beast, and survived the transformation. Now, scarred but victorious, they return to their everyday village to share the spoils of their quest. This naturally builds into our final daily practices, steps 10, 11, and 12. These are the habits that keep the hero grounded. You continue taking a personal daily inventory. When you mess up, and you will, you promptly admit it. You seek ongoing guidance through reflection or meditation. And most importantly, you carry this message to others and practice these principles in all your affairs. This is how you maintain your equilibrium. You don't just win the big battle once, you actively make your life and the world around you a better place every single day.
Well, we've mapped out the entire journey today, from the stormy seas of unmanageability all the way to the triumphant return of a transformed life. So I want to leave you with this provocative final thought directly from Thomas Alethea's work. What step are you on? Whether you're just starting to feel that call to adventure or you're currently deep in the abyss facing your demons, always remember that this is your epic story. You are the hero. The path is laid out right in front of you. The only question left is, are you ready to take the next step?